Welcome back to Spirit Spells and Magic. Today we are looking at Samhain in the Southern Hemisphere. As most people know in Australia, we are quite opposite to most of the world when it comes to our seasons, which means our Wheel of the Year is opposite also. Firstly, what is the Wheel of the Year? Well, the Wheel of the Year is a symbol of 8 Sabbats or holidays for the neo-paganism and Wiccan movement, which includes 4 solar festivals: the winter solstice, spring equinox, summer solstice and the fall equinox, and 4 seasonal festivities celebrating or marking a significant seasonal change. On this occasion, we are concentrating on Samhain, which is in the Northern Hemisphere celebrated on the 31st of October, but in the Southern Hemisphere it's celebrated on the 30th of April or 1st of May. This is the year's end, the last Sabbat on the wheel. Yes, our Beltane and Samhain are opposite. We do keep the Easter holiday in March, April, and Halloween on the 31st of October, mainly for commercial purposes, so as, I guess, big companies can make all of these things happen around one time for the world. But when it comes to the Wheel of the Year, we do keep it opposite. So this means that when the Northern Hemisphere are having their Beltane around this time, we're actually having Samhain. Our spring isn't until September, October and November. And our autumn or fall for us is now. We'll look at the wheel a little closer in another episode. I'm going to take you a walk through our Samhain at just after Easter. So I hope you enjoy this opposite southern end tradition. First of all, let's talk about what Samhain is. The name Samhain, meaning summer's end, is believed to come from ancient Ireland. The Celtic people believed it was a time of the end of one year and the beginning of another year. I look at the trees in our neighbourhood and the leaves are falling off. They're yellow and red in colour, so that matches up quite well. But we're almost at the end of our second autumn month. So it may be that back in these ancient times, they classed summer as the actual seasons of summer and autumn, and the darker months, which is what Samhain brings in, is winter and spring. So perhaps they saw the seasons differently than we do now. They do base a lot of it around harvest. The Samhain in the Northern Hemisphere they call the third harvest, where they're basically taking everything that they planted in the spring and now the earth goes back to darkness. They do not plant again until next spring. They don't see the fruits developing until maybe summer. So perhaps it starts with summer and then the harvest of autumn, and then begins the darkness of winter and into the end of spring, where things start to ripen and fruit starts bearing again. But it is honouring the traditions from our ancestors. And even though I'm in Australia, my ancestors come from England and Ireland. So it's honouring the traditions of our ancestors, even some 8 or 9 generations back. They believe that Samhain is a time when the dead are easiest to communicate with. We're going to show you a couple of craft ideas for Samhain in the Southern Hemisphere that have a lot to do with honouring those who have passed. A way we can do this is with altar decorations. As with any altar decorations, you can place as many or as little as you wish. Place any old Halloween items that you feel would add to the Samhain feel. Here are a few inexpensive handmade or store-bought items you can have for your altar this Samhain. If you have a besom or altar broom, use this to sweep away negativity or old energy from your altar. Using a clockwise sweeping motion around the altar. This is actually used before many rituals as well. I've also left the besom or broom to add to the autumn brown and nature coloured theme. Placing photos of loved ones who have passed away helps with communication and honouring them. I've placed my grandparents, and though I don't have any photos of my other ancestors, I will still be honouring them at my altar. My daughter and I painted some old sauce jars. We managed to get the labels off some of them, but others seemed to be stuck a little bit, and we just painted over the top. It looked nice and it was fitting for the Samhain theme and colours. Oranges and red. It looked pretty good. And we also put some LED lights inside to add to the theme. We also picked some leaves from the front and back yards that had fallen in lovely autumn colours of browns and reds, yellows, orange. And we placed them on the altar just for decoration, to add to that autumn fall theme. My daughter thoroughly enjoyed running around picking up sticks and leaves. And it wasn't that long ago that we'd made the broom or besom. It's starting to come along now, adding little bits here and there, whatever makes you feel comfortable. And it's best not to add too much. Of course, I go overboard. I've got pine cones as well. I'm just going to put them down with the leaves, just to add a little bit of that rustic autumn vibe. We picked these up at our local park. And we've added in a little fairy as well, sitting on a lily pad from the garden. We've got to bring in some feminine energy there. But it's really looking good. I do have some pieces that my grandparents gave me when they were alive. A crocheted butterfly from my grandmother, and a little piece of lace that my grandfather placed in a doll's house that he made me when I was about my daughter's age. I feel that these items that belong to my grandparents that they passed to me will aid in the communication coming through. And yes, we've got some apples as an offering. This time of year, we don't really have a lot of pumpkins. I mean, we do have pumpkins as it is that growing time, but Australia doesn't really go overboard with pumpkins until Halloween. Funny that. But yeah, so we didn't really go for the pumpkin option because most of the time they're cut as well, and we don't really want to put a cut piece of pumpkin up there. The apples really look very good. Now it's starting to really look like an ancestral altar. But I'm not finished yet. I've added a rope light, and of course I have my crystals there. But it does feel like it's still missing something. So I go scratching around in the spare room, digging up old boxes to find that item. It takes me a little while to locate the item. But my daughter starts filming the altar anyway, just for a bit of background. No, the item I'm searching for are some crystals. And it's a good idea to find crystals with a similar theme of autumn, the colours, the feel, the black obsidian and onyx, tourmaline, the reds in the carnelian, the yellows of the citrine and calcite. Anything that you find, oh yes, and some incense too. Or if you don't have those crystals, whatever crystals you have. We've got a little diffuser blowing out some air. But yes, any crystals that you have, even if you only have one, pop it on the altar. Yes, I've chosen some black stones for protection. I had quite a few, but I took a couple of them that I liked most. It's best to have your altar protected all the time. Anything that you think goes well with your altar. Here I am getting into my brown stones. Oh, a couple more. Oh, we've got some bloodstone too. It was a hard decision. I've got quite a lot of frocks. Oh, amethyst, yes, I have to put some amethyst in there. Because amethyst is a good stone for connecting to the spirits. There's the bloodstone, another piece. Starting to get a little carried away with my crystals. But here's some red tones and some carnelian. But as you can see, there's so much that you can put on your altar for Samhain. All you really have to do is match the colours of autumn and anything that you like that you want to place onto your altar will be very special. And it's also good to give a good intention to everything that you put onto your altar. But there we have it. Now we're going into a craft that my daughter and I decided would definitely be a great part of the altar. We decided we'd go ahead and make an ancestral tree. A tree that we would place the names of all of our ancestors as leaves onto the tree. So first, I used an old Pepsi box to open up and design the tree. My daughter cut it out and then wrote on the tree for our ancestors. She loves craft, so I try and get her to do as much as I can. Once we'd written out the name of the tree, we got a whole heap of yellow leaves because that was a colour easiest to write it out. And then we start writing all the surnames of our ancestors. It was a great opportunity for me to explain my family tree to my daughter, as she wasn't familiar with any of the names as yet. So once we got all of the names put together, we glued them all down onto our tree. And there you have it, our family tree for our ancestors. Another craft that we made together was an autumn wreath. Now we started out by wrapping vines we had from the backyard that were clipped off before we mowed the lawn. We wrapped the vines around a pot that was roughly about the size that we wanted to have our wreath. You can go for a bigger one if you've got a bigger pot. It did take some time and we had to change pots midway, but we wrapped it around loosely so as that it wouldn't get too caught when we wanted to take it off the pot. Once we took it off the pot, we had to gently and delicately wrap a piece of vine in and out of the wreath so as that it would hold it together. It didn't take very long at all, and it was quite easy for my daughter to do mostly on her own. But once we were finished wrapping the vine in and out, we started to plan what we were going to put on our wreath. Now you can choose to put whatever you like on a wreath, and you can have one for each Sabbat. This time we were going to go with some autumn leaves. Now we had to use super glue as we couldn't find our glue gun, which we're going to have to find shortly. We placed the leaves on top of the super glue. Now you can weave the end of a leaf into the wreath and place it in there. You can even tie it off if you like. We just went with a quick way because school holidays had ended and she was going back to school. So we quickly super glued them on. She picked out which leaves she wanted to put on there. And once we were done, we had our wreath ready to go on the altar. But we had to let the super glue dry for a little bit first. On the evening of Samhain, there are many rituals and spells that are available to do. However, for a beginner, I suggest just talking to your ancestors, not really doing a ritual or spell at this time, as you're only in the learning process. So it's best to get a little bit more experienced first in different things before attempting to do any rituals or spells. I've heard of many stories where things have gone wrong with people trying to attempt spells and rituals that they didn't really know how to perform. Another great way to honour your ancestors is visiting their grave on Samhain or leading up to Samhain and speaking to their grave site. But if you're unable to get down to the grave site, just in your own home, having a talk at the altar, meditating, getting used to Samhain and the act of the offering of the food and the readying of the altar. But definitely there are many spells that you can look up online, and we will eventually get those spells on our channel. But for now, for a beginner, it's the act of readying yourself for Samhain and offering of the food for the ancestors and remembering the ancestors. That is key. But you can talk to your ancestors at any time at your altar, and they will hear you. But if you have any questions, it's also good to do maybe a divination, grab a tarot deck or an oracle deck and read your cards. You may get the answers you seek that way. But for now, that was our crafts for Samhain and readying of the altar and decorations. Stay tuned for the solar eclipse, a quick one on the solar eclipse we have coming up. And we're going to put a book of shadows together and tell you all about what that is in one of our upcoming episodes. But for now, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe and share, and hit the notification bell so you know when I'm putting up more episodes. And as always, enjoy your day. Namaste.